Let's play a game. It's called Who is the Idiot That's Going to Destroy the World and Who is a Lying Piece of Crap? Okay, now normally I'm much more analytical about these things, but I'm actually pretty angry about this one. The United States... Okay, let me just start from the beginning. Poland has announced that it's in negotiations with the United States to place nuclear weapons inside of it to aim at Russia. Meanwhile, saying it wants to de-escalate the situation. The United States are saying, "Oh, this is wrong. We want to de-escalate. We don't want to make the situation worse." And so you go and literally make things worse. Of course, this is based on the claim that Putin said he would consider using nuclear weapons against Ukraine, which is an absolute lie. He never said that. He told the United States to be careful because this could spark off a confrontation that could turn into a nuclear war. He did not threaten to use nuclear weapons against Ukraine or anyone else. This is a straight up lie by the media. Now, I know this is a lie by the Western media because I went and looked at the speech that the US media claims is where he made the threat. Now, I can run it through Google Translate. You know, YouTube has software that will translate it to English, and he made no such threat. It's a lie. Once again, the mainstream media is deliberately creating a false narrative in order to forward US interests, but imperialists go imperialize. So, we once again have the US creating a lie, like the Gulf of Tonkin incident, like weapons of mass destruction, like claiming the Taliban was somehow connected to 9/11. Oh yeah, and then claiming Iraq was connected to 9/11, and then having a lawsuit against Iran claiming that that it had something to do with 9/11, but then not Saudi Arabia, then blocking one on Saudi Arabia because, you know, they actually did, and there's actually evidence for that. So, here we are. What are we looking at? Well, we could be looking at another goddamn Cuban Missile Crisis, because that's pretty much how this started last time. The United States put nuclear weapons in, I believe it was Turkey, and aimed them at the Soviet Union. So the Soviet Union decided, okay, well, if you're going to be that way, then so are we. And then went and installed nuclear weapons inside of Cuba and aimed them at the United States. And the whole point of the agreement that ended the Cuban Missile Crisis, which should have been called the US being an asshole crisis, was that for both parties to take their nuclear weapons out of the respective countries, which eventually did happen, resolving the situation. Now, there's much more into Cuban-Soviet relations I could go into, but that's not relevant to why we're here in this situation right now. So the United States is now going to put nuclear weapons, probably, it's not 100%, they're probably going to put nuclear weapons inside of Poland and aim them at Russia. So you know Russia is going to retaliate by taking nuclear weapons and putting them in another country and aiming them at the United States. I hope it's Venezuela, but I sincerely doubt it's going to happen. Venezuela will not let that happen. But that would be my choice if I had to choose which country I would put it in. So, what do we have? Essentially another Cuban Missile Crisis all over again, and yet again, another one caused by the United States trying to undermine a global competitor. Now, having said that, this is by no means an endorsement of Russia and what it is doing. The fact is, Russia is imperialist. It is as well. And then we have this idiotic theory being put forward by Dugin, a fascist, that somehow by having multipolar imperialist countries, that somehow now the world is better. Which kind of doesn't make any sense, because it does make nuclear war more likely to happen. It does make wars more likely to happen, because now we have competing powers instead of just a single power there. Now, by no means am I suggesting that a unipolar world is actually better, although I know Many of you who are complete simps for Eurasian fascism will say that directly in the comments. You'll claim that I am doing that, which I'm not. I'm saying there are things that we as Marxists should be advocating, and there are things that we should not be advocating. We should not be advocating either side in this conflict. We should be advocating the right of Donbass, Lugansk, etc. to make their free and fair choice to leave Ukraine and do whatever it is they want. If they freely and fairly choose to join Russia, then that is their choice. I would prefer that they remain neutral, be not neutral, be their own country, independent. But that's realistically, that's not going to happen. But if they choose to join Russia, then they should have the right to do so. This is not quite as complicated as people are trying to make it out to be. You're either with NATO or you're simping for Eurasian fascism. See, the problem is that's essentially what people are doing. It doesn't have to be that way, but it is the way that people are being. The problem is the pro-Russia people are essentially just doing anything that's against the US is therefore right, because globalists, which I'm sure in no way, shape, or form is a dog whistle for Jews, even though it completely matches it, but I digress. That's the problem here. There are too many people just jumping on the Russia bandwagon simply because it's not the US. And we have been in a unipolar world for so long that as soon as there's any kind of resistance to it, they instantly jump on it. Now, I'm going to explain how this is a form of first worldism. This is very much a phenomenon that we get from first worldists. Essentially, as soon as people do one little thing, people start saying, oh look, we're starting another revolution now. It's going to be a revolution and it's coming any day now, guys. Come on, let's just get together and keep pushing, and then we're going to get it. Like after the global recession in 2008, or Occupy Wall Street. That was totally going to turn into a revolution, guys. Or even like the Chaz Chop kind of thing. And a lot of people were far more rational about it, saying, okay, there's a commune. Okay, cool. Do it. I wished them all the success in the world. Do it. But we know the police are going to come down and shut it down. And the people in that autonomous area are not going to do anything about it. And we knew that. And every time we get some kind of little spark of resistance, all of a sudden now it's going to be a revolution. And they think that. The same thing can happen. It wasn't George Floyd, but a little bit before George Floyd. It was like, oh, now there's this big spontaneous class consciousness that's coming up. No, wait, it's not. Now, mostly my point has always been that they keep taking the smallest little insignificant thing and blowing it up as if it were the greatest thing. Now, there is nothing wrong with using these incidents to go out and agitate to the people. Go ahead, spend your time on that if you want. Agitation is always a good thing. But don't get a false perception in your mind that this is it, the revolution is happening. That's about as laughable, actually more laughable, than thinking January 6th insurrection was a revolution. It wasn't. It was a bunch of yahoos going in, essentially supporting a fascist coup, or an attempted fascist coup by Donald Trump, which, I have always said, in times of great crisis, the advanced industrialized countries always tend towards fascism, not revolution. But I digress. Now, I know what you're saying here, but look at all these third world groups that are cheering on Russia. Yes, many of them are doing it hoping to get aid from Russia. They're not fools. They know what's going on here. They know this is multipolar imperialism, and that by pandering to Russia, they'll maybe get some support, or pander to China, which I don't know why, because China has tried to smash revolutionary movements, so I don't know why you would think China would help you. But the same thing with Russia, just because it's anti-US, and they think that by allying with an anti-US force that suddenly they're going to be in a better position. Maybe they can get some materials or secret funding or weapons or whatever, but I sincerely doubt Vladimir Putin gives one iota of a hell about revolutionary movements around the world, considering the friggin' guy is anti-communist and frequently slanders the Soviet Union. So I really wouldn't consider him to be all that reliable in that regard. But politics is politics, and you have to work with what it is that you have in the world. And that right now would be an anti-US sentiment that is being led by Russia at this point, and a lot of them are going to pander to Russia just to try to get some of that support. So while personally, politically, I would disagree with it, I do understand why they are doing it. Again, I get why they're doing it, still don't agree with it. But it is their revolution, and if that's the path that they want to take it down, that's their free and fair choice. Highly inadvisable, but might very well be. So, that's essentially what's going on. And that's why you get these MAGA communist morons, and there really is no other word to describe them other than morons, for thinking that communism and MAGAs, the people who think America already is a socialist country because black people have rights, theoretically. And they think some of the most idiotic things in the world, like if you get universal health care, a death panel decides whether you live or die, which is not a real thing. That's never been a real thing in any socialist country or even social democratic country, because they don't know the difference between social democracy and socialism, largely because they're American, and that's usually an explanation in itself. That's enough to explain that kind of ignorance. And that's what all this is based on. The simping over China, this MAGA communist nonsense, is because they know they've got nothing. There's no great revolutionary movement in the United States. Since the Panthers, there never has been. There's been nothing. A fantasy and a few delusional, in the minds of some delusional people that are terminally online. And so that's as far as it's ever actually existed. So they're looking for something. Oh, we're going to ignore everything capitalist that China is doing. We're going to ignore everything imperialist that China is doing because they want something to cheer for. They need something to cheer for because they can't admit to themselves how bad the situation really is. Because why would you ever acknowledge material reality? Same thing is here right now. It is people essentially just delusional who are desperate to have something to cheer. So you'll cheer some complete moron who came up with some idea that somehow the MAGA crowd and communism are somehow compatible. This is idiotic to a degree which I cannot even explain. It's as idiotic as saying America is a socialist country today. It's that level of stupid. This whole thing is monstrously idiotic beyond any level that I can describe. Every single moron that I saw in 2008 screaming that Obama was going to make the country socialist, every Republican moron who thought that was it, the blacks were going to take over, the New World Order, FEMA camps were coming in to take away our guns and our freedoms and our lives and force us all to become Muslim because Obama's a Muslim, because the people who think that have the intellectual capacity of a goddamn turnip. It's along those same lines. We have to understand here, Putin just doesn't want to be under the thumb of the United States. And who would? Nobody but sellout politicians in countries want to be under their thumb. There's no real country that says, yeah, you know what, we just like being subservient to the United States. Nobody likes that. But there are many politicians and political parties and wealthy elite, the local comprador, the ones who are the running dogs of imperialism, as Mao said it, who would sell out their country in a second because it's in their rational economic interest in that being propping themselves up, because a free and democratic country would undermine their power. So, with all of that being said, I understand You're desperate for something to cheer, so you're going to take Putin completely uncritically, say you're not taking him uncritically, but then actually do it. Actually take him uncritically. And then say this is like some great movement. I have seen every single one of these nonsense movements come and go. In the past 15 years, I have seen every single one of these idiotic fringe ideas come and go. There is a turnover in the people who are communist every 2 years. Someone comes in really hard, I'm a communist, blah, 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 and then by 2 years they're gone. And then a whole new next generation of whatever it is you want to call them, tankies, or whatever it is you want to call, just the word tanky basically means nothing anymore, comes in and they all act like it. I watched this happen, and I watched every single one of them scream and wail their head off that I was the epitome of evil. Where are these people now? They're all goddamn liberals cheering on Biden in the hopes that sometime in the future they're going to give them the stupid health care and the free education that's not coming. Because they need to believe that. Because they're not really revolutionary. They don't believe in revolution. They keep saying that, but they don't do it. The same thing when I was in the LLCO, we'd say to somebody, okay, you're down with the cause, right? And you want to fight? Yeah. You're ready to give your life for socialism? Yes. Can you send us $20 a month to fund our operations? Oh, yeah, so what's that going to? Can I get an itemized list and all the things that it's going to, and, just for Margaret, so I can know everything? So essentially, you're willing to die for socialism, but not give $20. So, you'll forgive me if I say you're full of shit. Okay, I watched the damn Pol Potist movement come in. And everybody was running all over, Pol Pot was the best, and Vietnam was revisionist, and Pol Pot was the only real way forward, and these people... word myself very carefully here, because this is YouTube. Essentially, that wave came in and was gone. Then there was a huge Hoja movement that came in. They were all over this, Hoja this, Hoja that, Hoja's the only way forward, and there's really only Stalin, blah, 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 and that one died off. Then there was the big libertarian socialist wave, and they all came in and screamed I was the goddamn evil cis male devil. And now those people have mostly shoved off. I have watched every one of these stupid little niche ideologies show up and then disappear. And I have outlived every single one of them. And I have seen this happen over and over again. The reason I'm saying this is because I know what I'm talking about. This MAGA communism idiocy will pass too. That is the nature of the first world. Literally just doing socialism and practicing it and doing it and organizing is something they don't do. They come up with some kind of ridiculous idea, some kind of new formulation or new synthesis, depending on who you are, that's somehow going to change everything, and then literally doesn't. And I know I can hear you screaming at me right now, well, what did you ever do? I've been educating people for 15 years, unlike the people like you who are only around for 2 years and do nothing but call people names on the internet. Remember that. I have gone through all of you. Lil Havana Boys, Dialectics, Jenna Leia, Daniel Sullivan, the guy who did his best to cover up a rape in the FRSO, from the completely demented psychopaths in RAIM to the New York Maoists who kept swearing that I was the biggest joke ever. Well, their rich parents bought them all the stuff that they needed to do their revolution. I have outlived all of you for a reason. Because your entire ideologies were not real. You're not dedicated to anything. Most of the New York Maoists now, the NYCU, CUNY, SUNY, whatever it was, they've all moved on to being liberals. One of them was an $80,000 a year construction worker claiming that he was like the lowest of the low of the proletariat. whose father was also a millionaire, whose father did the theme song for The Sopranos. I believe it was The Sopranos his father did the theme song for. So you could tell how terribly underprivileged he was. And you know who you are that I'm talking about. And I did hear about all the slanderous shit you said about me. There you go. Not to mention the leader of the New York Maoists, or when they existed, Carlos, who beat the shit out of his girlfriend and then turned around and started claiming he was trans, so that way everybody would forgive him or ignore the fact that he had beaten up a woman. But, you know, that's besides the point. I've outlived all of you for a reason. You're fakes. I am still here doing the same thing that I have always done, despite every goddamn attempt to destroy me, destroy my life. How many of you psychopaths like Tim Cicada, or, you know, whatever fake name he's using now, threatening to kill my family? You know, they used to run Marxist memes, not the Marxist memes now, but the old one, who doxed me and then sent death threats to members of my family. I've outlived all of you for a reason. You're not dedicated. You're not real. You're not... You don't believe in socialism. You want to know what it is? Why this happens? Why there's so many people who go through this? Oh, they were socialists for 2 years and then they quit. Because Marxism is an identity for them. They identify as Marxists. They identify as someone who's in the lower sections of the population. That is why people got so mad at suggesting that there was a global class divide. I'm sorry, guy who works at Walmart, which I'm sure is a shitty job because I've worked at Walmart too. It's fucking horrible. But you were not... Sorry about that. The memory card was full. As I was saying, the guy with the shitty job in the first world is not equal to the person in the third world. That is a ridiculous comparison that is laughable to any degree and is a complete insult to the global proletariat. The anger towards them being told that they're not the same is nothing more than a knee-jerk reaction to insulting someone's identity. If you tell them, sorry, no, you're not the salt of the earth. I'm sorry, but those textile workers that died when the wall collapsed and killed 100 of them, or that, you know, that textile factory in Bangladesh that burned down and killed all those people, and then they got together and went and killed the guy who owned the place. That's not you. I'm sorry, but that's not you. Sorry, it's a habit for me to say sorry. This is something you're going to have to accept. And it's the identity. They feel like they are Marxists. This is a thing in their interest. So this is now who they are. This is their personality. This is and then when material reality comes into it, they get angry and can't stand it. And it makes them so bloody angry that you sorry, no, what are you talking about? I got like the... And then they go into the whole oppression Olympics thing. And then usually scream, you're a white male. Yes, I am a white male and therefore racist because I said that a textile worker has it a lot worse off than me. That doesn't even make any sense. But in their mind it does because they're angry and they want to see it that way. Well, that is not to say that there isn't real oppression in the first world. Of course there is. Try being black and stopped by the police. That's real oppression. Try being Native American. That's even greater oppression. But there is nothing anti-Marxist about acknowledging that there's a difference between the first and the third world country. And most of the people, the middle-class kids, who get angry at being questioned that they're not the poorest of the poor in the world, nothing changes that. There was a day when every single communist was older than me. Then the day came that I was the same age as them and I was happy because I was in a peer group and I could fit in with them. Now they're all younger than me. And I know that there are exceptions. I know that. I'm not stupid. But the vast majority are now younger than me. Why do you think that happens? Because when you do this long enough, you realize it's not really what it is that you think it is. you eventually realize people are not willing to fight in the first world. They're not willing to fight. There are real fights to do. There are fights for social justice. There are fights against racism, etc. But the Marxist ones, it's not quite there. And that's why most of the old Marxists that you know are some university or college professor that's got tenure who probably hasn't even spoken about Marxism in 20 years. Or maybe 30 years now, who knows. All I'm saying, and the whole point of this video, is to wake people up to the material reality we face. A multipolar imperialist world does not equal a better situation. It's just a different situation. It doesn't mean we're any closer to victory. It doesn't mean we're even any farther away from it. The only thing that makes us farther away from it are these idiotic ideas, or some kind of new wave version of Marxism that's going to be the one that changes everything, and everybody's minds are going to be different, and now the revolution is going to happen, blah, blah, blah. Well, everybody says read, and everybody says study. And those are absolutely important things to do. Try not to forget about the real world, and analyze the real world. Because that's what people don't want to do. Because if you think this is the same world that existed in the 1960s, you're a fool. If your Marxism ends with Lenin, you're a fool. The world is nowhere near anything similar to what it was in Lenin's time. Lenin's theories are important, absolutely. But you do have to go beyond it, because the world has moved beyond it. The objective international situation has moved beyond it. Now, this isn't to cheerlead Mao. It's far beyond what Mao theorized as well. Most of his great theories came in the 1960s, and some of them are obsolete because the conditions have changed. And nobody wants to do that. People don't want to update their theory to the way things are now. They want to just mindlessly repeat what anybody says in the past and then completely take it out of context so they can twist it into their idiotic new ideology. So people, I know this was a long video and a tremendous rant, but it was something that needed to be said and something I needed to get off my chest. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.